Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. So today we're going to be looking at Gotham Knights in terms of everything that we've seen so far. It's been a year's journey in terms of when we first saw gameplay and reveal footage at DC Fandom event of 2020, and we also got to see a little bit more in 2021. Now, if you saw my thumbnail, I wasn't trying to alarm you. I'm asking a genuine question that I feel like I have an answer that's quite suitable for me and maybe some other players. Nonetheless, there are people that will have different opinions as to what the answer will be, so I feel like we need to kind of come together and talk about this. So if at the end of the video you have an opinion that's probably maybe on the same thoughts or even different, please leave them in the comment section. And if you enjoyed the video, please hit like. It'll definitely help the channel. So let's jump into it. So before we even go in, I just wanted to give you guys a small update. The Steam page for Gotham Knights is now up, so you can check it out on Steam, but you cannot pre-order, and that's about all there is to that. But Gotham Knights, should we be worried? My answer is simple. I believe not yet. Not yet, and that's very significant in terms of the way I actually look at things. Now, I have to be honest, when we saw the trailer, all I could think to myself was, wow, after all of this hype and everything that's going on, after all of my skepticism and how much I've lowered my expectations, it appears that this development team in terms of marketing doesn't seem to have a rush, or in terms of the way they want to present the game, they don't seem to have things in the way that we perceived or we expected for them to actually, come forward and bring what it is that they're bringing in terms of telling people about the game. So you would have thought that at this DC Fandom event that they will probably be coming with something more than they did in the last DC Fandom event, or something of equal measure, but they didn't even do that. If you wanted to say, okay, what's of equal measure or more? Well, last DC Fandom event, they did a 7-minute trailer, gameplay trailer, and then they also did the regular reveal trailer for the game. So that reveal trailer was somewhere around 2 minutes. And so altogether somewhere around 9 minutes, and then a little presentation for them. So they had a little bit more time to present, but in this DC Fandom event didn't seem like they had enough time. And in my video where I talk about fans being disappointed, I kind of addressed that, so you can check that video out. But nonetheless, you would have thought that they would have slapped two things back to back in terms of one, a reveal trailer, and then another one saying, hey, this is this hero right now walking through this area, and this is what they're doing, just how they ran the mission with Batgirl. Perhaps we were expecting that, maybe Robin or maybe Nightwing will be in that situation. Now, there was a small clip of Red Hood actually fighting, and that was quite interesting, which I'll try to highlight in a separate video. But nonetheless, why people may be worried is because they didn't come to the stage with anything more. And to add to that, there is no release date in sight. And so when you kind of think about it, it's easy to stir up concern. It's easy for your mind to kind of think the worst, and there's nothing wrong in doing that. But again, you still have to kind of go back and say, all right, instead of thinking the worst, let's go back and analyze what exactly it is that might be going on in this particular studio. So here is what I think. The Damian Wayne game cancellation that happened within this studio, in my opinion, pretty much set this studio back by a lot of time. Also, the possibility that they've been actually working on a Superman prototype or a Superman game, which was first discussed by IGN in a 2015 video, could also be another thing that's also eaten out of their resources and time to deliver the Gotham Knights game. So when you want to square it together, you got to go back and say, okay, who's the creative director for Gotham Knights? Who's the person that's actually running the ship? The name of that person is Patrick Redding, and they were hired to Warner Brothers Games Montreal in 2014. Now, from 2014, we have somewhere around 7 years. Now, when you kind of look at it and say, okay, within that 7 years, there was more than likely a cancellation of the Damian Wayne game, which basically should have, in more than all likelihood followed Arkham Knight, but somehow they decided that, this game was probably not going to be a thing, or maybe Warner Brothers said pull the plug on that, or maybe they didn't like it. Now then you go back and say, okay, were they working on Gotham Knights first, or were they working on Superman first, and then they had to kind of maybe put Superman on the back burner and eventually jump on the work at Gotham Knights? For those of you who don't know, my allusion to Superman or a Superman game is not only based on the IGN report, which may be more of a rumor, but from the words of a developer, Osama Dorias, who is still at Warner Brothers Games Montreal. He was in a podcast a few years ago where he actually mentioned that Warner Brothers Games Montreal was working on 2 superhero games. So if you want to track down that podcast, it used to be called the Humans of Gaming podcast. I think they've changed the name, but if you Google it and Google his name, you will see that episode and you can watch it. So in my opinion, I think perhaps a lot of this ambition has probably stunted the development, the progress, and deployment of Gotham Knights. If you you really want to, just say, let's just sit back and let's just kind of start to slice things apart, you can more than likely point and say, okay, perhaps this is what might be causing the delays in these games. Because once Gotham Knights ships out the door, I believe strongly that Warner Brothers Games Montreal is going to set their sights on that Superman game, if it's still a thing. If the plug's been pulled on that, then that's a whole different case. So maybe within their own limited resources, within their own limited studio, they were working on these concepts and they probably got the green light and they were excited about it. Now, you might say, well, isn't it just a matter of just doing the Gotham Knights game and then doing the Superman game? But yes, there's also an extra layer of complexity in making a game like Gotham Knights. Think about it. How many games has Warner Brothers Games Montreal or even Rocksteady worked on in terms of the Arkham series? They've worked on 4 games together. Every single game had one major protagonist except when you played in DLC mode. If you were playing the DLC, then you could play with Batgirl in Arkham Knight, and then in some sense you played with Robin in Arkham City, and then I don't know if there's any other DLC here and there, but nonetheless, you basically had the main game where you played as one major protagonist who had his own skill tree, who had all his own elements, who had all his own fight styles and everything that was just centered around that one character. And so in developing a game like this, you could build foundational principles and expand upon the game or actually make differences in your old systems. In fact, if you take a look at the Arkham games from Rocksteady, you'll notice that Arkham City looked very much like it built from Arkham Asylum, and Arkham Knight looked like it just picked up from where Arkham City stopped. In fact, Arkham Origins, the developers actually mentioned that they actually reached out to Rocksteady, who gave them a bunch of assets and things that they could use in order for them to work on Arkham Origins. So all they just did was just build on pre-existing systems. In case of Gotham Knights, what they're doing is they're taking all these 4 characters and basically making a game with 4 mains. This is, in my opinion, where that complexity comes in, because every single character is going to have to, in a sense, level up in their own unique way, get strong and powerful in their own unique way, and engage the game in their own unique way. So imagine playing a mission with Batgirl, right? And then coming back to play that same mission with Red Hood. Both characters fight differently. They approach things differently. Their animations are different. Their skills are different. Their attacks are different. So all of these things piled upon one another, I feel like, has basically weighed very much upon this game. And so when you kind of do the addition in your mind saying, okay, pull in the plug on potentially the Damian Wayne game, potentially having a Superman game being developed alongside this Gotham Knights game, which already has not only the complexity of one main character, but the complexity of 4 characters, I think there's legitimate reason to think that that's what's making the game, in a sense, continue to feel like it's beyond our reach. Now, does this mean that the game is more than likely going to get canceled or we're not going to see anything? I don't think that's the case. And that's why I answered the question in the beginning of this video saying that it is not time for us to worry yet. I think what the developers need to do more than anything else is just bury down and continue to make this game, because right now it doesn't feel to me like they're in a place where they can be talking too much about this game. And I think this is why I prefer Rocksteady's approach to Suicide Squad. They haven't come out to really do much in terms of saying, oh, or they never necessarily have promised the release date. If you even ask any, if you look around, you won't see anything, only a release year. But in the case of Gotham Knights, they've already had one release year promise and everything has shifted. This basically signals to me that the game is not in a place where they probably could release it this year. So moving into next year is more than likely going to give them time to polish all of the different elements that I've mentioned. But nonetheless, I'll stop the video here. I don't want the video to run too long, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. If you're worried, what are you worried about? And for you, if you're not worried, then I guess, you can basically just say these are some of the signals that you've seen that makes you feel good about the game. Talk to you guys very soon. Peace out.